Social Democrats councillor Chris Pender on the Kildare Newbridge Municipal District. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Eoin.
Your reaction to this, Chris?
To be honest, it's almost laughable to hear Minister Hayden talking about how over the last number of years they've strengthened renters' rights, and yet there's still little to no security for any kind of a renter out there. I myself am a renter. I rent a one-bed apartment on Eyre Street here in Newbridge, but yeah, in the morning my landlord could turn around and say that he wants his daughter to move in there, or he has a change in family circumstance and I'm out of there, regardless of whether I have been paying my rent, regardless of whether I have been prioritising paying my rent over paying for electricity or food. And that's a situation that many people are in. Many people are now faced with the fact that over the last number of years they have prioritised paying rent. They've prioritised essentially paying landlords' mortgages over feeding themselves and heating their homes, over feeding their kids and heating their homes. And what they're now faced with, what we're all now faced with, is an avalanche of homelessness. Prior to the eviction ban being introduced, the RTB indicated that there were 2,273 tenants that were served eviction notices. That's 2,273 people that, once this eviction ban is lifted, will be facing eviction. And I don't know if you've had a look on daft.ie this morning, but if you look, for instance, in Kildare as a whole, there's 65 properties for rent. If you look at Newbridge and surrounds, my own area, there's 10 properties for rent. Of those properties, I think 2 of them are within HAP limits for a single individual, and probably 3 of them are within HAP limits for maybe a 3-person family. And hearing Minister Hayden turn around and say that the government are aware of the consequences and they're taking the consequences on board, what consequences are government actually taking on board? Are they increasing funding to local councils for the tenant in situ scheme to allow us to purchase homes where people are facing the possibility of eviction? Are they going to increase funding for CPOs so that we can compulsory purchase order some of those vacant properties or derelict homes so we can bring them back into use? Because let's be very clear here, and I think this is something that's constantly missing. People talk about the fact that councils need to buy these properties, they need to bring these properties back into use. But that is part of the council's budget for the purchase of housing. And oftentimes when it comes to CPOs, they can be a lengthy court battle that eats into that when instead of fighting to purchase one property, we could have purchased 3. So while I understand where people are coming from in the balancing of rights between landlords and renters, there is no balance here. They've essentially just turned around to landlords and said, you can do what you want, whereas renters and tenants are sitting there facing the possibility of eviction in 3 weeks now, not even a month. And on average, I have people coming to my door, to the door of my office, facing the possibility of eviction. Since the emergency legislation was introduced for the eviction ban, I've had 23 people in my office who have been served notice throughout this. Now, that notice will be after the eviction ban, but that's a further 23 people on top of 2,273 people.
Okay. Just to mention as well, of course, Chris, is that this is where we are at the moment after where Darragh O'Brien discussed that moratorium with the 3 government party leaders last night, but it is understood that the Cabinet is likely to discuss plans for a budgetary package for tenants and landlords, which will be developed over the coming months. So we do have to wait and see the kind of devil within the detail there, what comes out of that meeting, which is currently ongoing. But just to ask you, Chris, and I've raised this issue with some of the Sinn Féin TDs as well, who are calling for a 3-year eviction ban. Where would you draw the line? Because, the government, and I've put this point to Martin Hayden, it is going to see an increase in homelessness. Anybody will tell you that. But where do we draw the line? Because we can't just have an open-ended eviction ban, can we?
No, absolutely not. Now, we can increase security for tenants, but what I would be looking for is for us to extend the eviction ban to, at the very least, the end of the year. Martin himself has said that the Housing for All plan is working. Now, I'll disagree in certain things. Yes, we had 30,000 houses built last year, but the target of 9,000 social homes, which was ridiculously low, wasn't even met.
But just to come back in there, Chris, and play devil's advocate, and just to put it in context, if we say extend the eviction ban to the end of the year, we're looking at December. There'll be uproar come November, December, if we start saying, OK, the eviction ban is lifted, then we're going to put people out on the streets in the middle of winter, and then we're back in a circle again, back to where we are at the moment.
Instead of saying the end of the year, I should have said for a year.
Right.
So to bring us back to this point, that would, in essence, give government, as they said their Housing for All plan is working, it would give them the opportunity to increase supply. It would give them the opportunity to increase cost-based rental. It would give them the opportunity to increase affordable purchase. It would give them multiple opportunities to ramp up their plan with the security of knowing, listen, I think we all know that evictions have continued throughout this ban, and evictions will continue regardless of the ban, because it's a watered-down version of the ban, and there are still ways of evicting people if a landlord truly wants to. But it would give them the opportunity to ramp up the tenant in situ scheme, allowing councils to purchase properties where tenants are facing homelessness. It would give them the opportunity to support councils to make compulsory purchase orders on empty buildings. It would give them the opportunity to explore the possibility of introducing something like compulsory rental orders, which are done in many other European countries. It would give them the opportunity to increase the delivery of affordable cost-based rental and social housing. I'm not saying extend this indefinitely. I'm not saying extend an eviction ban to a point where oftentimes small landlords will be the worst affected, because there's multiple investment companies out there that will not be affected by this, do not care. They'll sit on properties empty. But by extending the eviction ban even for a year, it gives the government an opportunity to see if their plan is working, to ramp up the delivery of their plan. I have a 60-year-old woman whose apartment block is being sold to an investment fund. I have a single mother with 3 kids. One of them is being homeschooled due to a lack of school places. And I have a family with one child prepping for community and another child prepping for Leaving Cert. What am I supposed to tell them? This is the reality of what they're doing. They can talk about the fact that this is impacting small landlords, but this is impacting young families, small families, pensioners. This is impacting kids going to school. Ending up in homeless accommodation, and let's be very clear, that's if these families even end up in homeless accommodation, because as Martin from Threshold said, local authorities are at capacity. I'm not sure that we have the emergency accommodation to house the people that will be looking for it.
Okay.
And to say that the government are taking vacant housing seriously, how exactly are they taking it seriously when they've implemented a 0.3% vacant homes tax when inflation has gone up, when profits in housing have gone up by over 10%?
Okay.
Like a 0.3% vacancy tax, with the proviso that if that property is derelict, they don't have to pay it. They're literally encouraging vacancy and dereliction.
All right. On that note, Councillor Chris Pender of the Social Democrats on the Kildare-Newbridge Municipal District, we'll leave it there. As we have mentioned, that meeting is ongoing at the moment. Anything that comes out of it throughout the course of the show, we'll bring it to you. And of course, you can hear more on our news bulletins throughout the day here on KFM.